Why the speed?
Yeah, you're a very good lawyer. If you want me to move slow, you should have said recite it slowly. If you wanted me to recite at, medium speed, you should have said recite at medium speed. If you wanted me to recite at high speed, but you left the option open. And we committed this to memory as children, and so since childhood, this is how I recite it.
Now, respected colleague, in our early days in the 9th Parliament, I described you as a diplomat based on what I have known you to be in the ECOWAS Parliament. How do you hope to bring that to bear in the handling of this new portfolio, especially the sensitive aspects of chieftaincy and religious affairs?
Well, I don't know if I'm a diplomat or not, but I do my best. I have gone around a bit, even though at a relatively young age. And so I have seen a lot of things. And that experience informs my approach to the way that I do things. First thing is the skill of listening. The skill of listening. I believe that in leadership, you must listen. Develop the skill of listening and hearing. Sometimes we listen, but we don't hear. And also appreciate how to engage with opposing views, with opposing worldviews, with opposing understandings of things, and with opposing interest. You and I have worked very closely, and sometimes people don't understand what happens. And today I will be very frank and tell you, the whole country, that the way that we have related is that when there's an issue, I will tell him, this is my position on this issue, but do your job, let me do my job. Your job as a minority to criticize and bring out alternative ideas. My job as majority is to make sure that government business is executed. And so whatever you do, trust me, personally, I have no problem. But understand also that at the end of it all, I will get government business done. I'll get government business done. So if you are forthright in your dealings with people and they know how you work and you know how they work, you will be able to minimize friction. So chieftaincy is one very sensitive area. I think that the first thing everybody has to understand is that no minister of state has the authority under our constitution to interfere or meddle in chieftaincy matters. It's not the business of a minister to meddle in chieftaincy matters, to interfere in chieftaincy matters. The Chieftaincy Act and the Constitution impose obligations on ministers who are acting on behalf of the president to provide support services to the institution, namely the National House of Chiefs, the Regional Houses of Chiefs, and the traditional councils. That's what the minister is supposed to do, but not to meddle in specific chieftaincy matters. When there is a matter that is actually a chieftaincy matter, it is only the regional and national House of Chiefs and the Supreme Court that have jurisdiction. Yours is just to provide a facilitating, role if it is needed by either the National House of Chiefs or the Regional House of Chiefs by way of supporting them, as mentioned earlier on, resources so that they can adjudicate the cases expeditiously and dispose of them. But as Minister, you have no mandate to go interfering in chieftaincy matters. And that's exactly how I will approach the work. Thank you.
Leader, I have with me a petition dated the 15th of August, 2026, from the Mamprogu Traditional Council with reference number MTC/P27/52/442. I received it at 10:41 a.m. on the 20th of August 2026. In this petition, the petitioners contend that you, as a person, they have no doubt about your academic qualification, your professional qualification, and political competence. They have no doubt at all. They believe that you qualify to serve the high office of Minister of State. You may not be impartial, and perhaps you may not be independent. And above all, they are not too sure whether or not they can have your confidence. I'm sure they are listening to all of us and watching us. Can they have some assurances from you that should this house pass you, you are going to be a father for all, irrespective of any prejudice they may have formed against your person?
Thank you very much. All I can say is that my mother is a Mamprushi. Mamprushis are my uncles. They are partly responsible for my upbringing and training. If I fail in this new job, then it means that there is a defect in the way they have trained me. And I believe that they have trained me well, and I'll vindicate them by living up to their expectations. That I can promise them. I can promise my grandfather, the Nairi, that in my capacity as Minister for Chieftaincy Affairs, I will definitely live up to his expectations. Thank you.
Respected leader, now you delve into District Assembly revenue mobilization. I heard you on very strong points in one of your very brilliant submissions on the House floor when we were considering the common fund allocations, where you held a view that very impoverished districts should be given more, and those others in their cities who can rely on the private sector for revenue should be encouraged to formulate policies that would enable them make revenue. Would you want to seize this opportunity to explain that better and how a ministerial policy can be enacted to achieve that purpose. I say so because I am myself a product of the District Assembly. My politics started as an assemblyman. I became a presiding member. And oftentimes our MMDCs are redundant. They just do the routine work, waiting for revenue. And sometimes even the revenue, it's pocketed and nothing gets to them. The systems in place to do the checks and balances are not there. So talk to me about policy, ministerial policy in that respect, and whether or not in such a policy you will introduce technology aimed at helping reduce the thievery, the embezzlement, or the insufficient transparency in the accountability of revenue mobilization at the assemblies.
Thank you very much. I also started as an assembly member. I just didn't have the fortune to be a presiding member like you. I'm very passionate about local governance. I think that the first thing people have to know is that it is the intention of our Constitution that assemblies should be self-financing. That's actually the intention of the Constitution, that assemblies should be self-financing. And your capacity to be self-financing is one of the criteria used to determine whether or not you should be granted assembly status. So you're supposed to be self-financing first, and then the constitutional architecture to share part of the central government revenue says that the revenue that is sent to you as common fund money is only for development, even though the Constitution does not define what development is. We all, understand what development is: infrastructure, clinics, and etc. But the management of the assembly, the expenses of the assembly, is supposed to come from the assembly itself. That we have largely failed to achieve. The second thing that I want to say is that when I was nominated, my friend, the finance minister, called me to congratulate me. And I said to him, I will be richer than you soon. That's to say my Ministry of Local Government, will be richer than you soon. And so how will you get richer than me? I said, because as for you, you can only collect VAT, and then you collect income tax, and then you are at the port collecting import levies and etc. But the DCE can collect revenue rates on every single building and property sitting in his district, and he can collect it every year. He can collect basic rate, what the whites used to call poll tax, on every citizen residing in that district, and collect market tolls, collect lorry park tolls, collect all sorts of levies. I mean, when you go through the Local Governance Act from section 137 onwards, you see the list of things that the assemblies are supposed to be collecting. The last time I sat with some experts to do some basic analysis, from property rates alone, I believe that the assemblies could be collecting close to 20 billion Ghana cedis annually. Just property rates alone, at very, very conservative figures. And so the potential exists. I was having a conversation with some civil servants a few days ago, and I was telling them that I cannot understand why the district in which Ghana Airport Company is located will ever be a poor district. And drawing parallels with cities like London, New York, Istanbul, you find out that the mayor and the local government authority has more money than the central government at those locations. And people are moving to the urban centers. The agglomeration has huge economic potentials for assemblies. What they are not doing is just not identifying and collecting. So like you indicated, the first major thing I will do as minister is to put in place an infrastructure for us to immediately identify all properties across the country that are supposed to be paying rates to the assemblies. What we have now is we have the street naming and addressing, house numbering program. But what that does is it simply gives you the location of a property and a particular address. But it doesn't tell you the nature of the property, the value of the property for the purposes of levying rates. And so we will embark on a major exercise of identifying all properties, having them properly described, and having them properly valued so that the assemblies can levy the appropriate rates. And to deal with the problem of people taking the money and pocketing it, we will also try as much as possible to ensure that everything is digital. And so it will be difficult for you to divert the resources. And we want to ensure that we try to understand why at the local level it is not being collected. When you ask the DCE to go to the chief's house and collect property rates, I'm sure he will think that you are, passing a death sentence on him. You may not easily have a DCE insisting that his constituency chairman should pay property rates. And secondly, when you leave it to them to collect, they may also end up leaving it in the hands of, party foot soldiers, families, nephews, and etc. When they also are given that task, they feel that it is their reward for supporting a family member to become an MMDCE. And so when they collect it, they are not supposed to account to him. And so many dynamics are at play to make it difficult for collection. That's why for all these years, there hasn't been collection. And I also believe that in a lot of cases, the tax experts will tell you that some taxes are just not worth collecting because they're just not significant. And so I will look at how we can get a system that is centrally monitored, a system that is designed in such a way that it is totally digital in terms of identifying and valuing properties, totally digital in terms of the mechanism for payment, and totally digital in terms of the disbursement of the resources. I believe if we do that, we'll be able to realize the full potential of assemblies to mobilize revenue and deal with their development challenges.
Very well. Leader, I have a follow-up on this, but this Galamsey menace is a serious problem. I had a rare privilege of discussing some governance issues with one prominent religious leader in our country who is part of your entourage. I don't have his permission to mention his name. He expressed deep concerns about Galamsey. And he was worried about we, the political actors, how we behave, our attitude towards natural resources and general well-being of our people. How do you hope to get your MMDCs to help fight Galamsey activities in their various districts and municipalities?
I have a long-standing relationship with small-scale mining. If you recall, in my previous life, I was Minister for Environment, Science and Technology. And so in that capacity, I was very concerned about small-scale mining activities. I think there's also an issue of nomenclature. What we call Galamsey is simply either artisanal mining or small-scale mining activity. That's what we call Galamsey. When we determine it as Galamsey, it gives it a negative connotation. What are the underlying causes? The underlying causes really are that a lot of these young people who want to mine legally have difficulty obtaining the requisite permits to carry out the mining activity. And because they don't have the requisite permits to carry out the mining activity, they also consider themselves as illegal actors. And because they are illegal actors, all the relevant or required investments to mine properly, safely, and reclaim, they don't do it because they know that they have no right or title, and it will be unsafe to make those investments. Otherwise, many of them actually have the resources to, make the investment. I will want us as a country to rethink and say, how about if in every district we identify the actors and where they are carrying out the actions and find a way of ensuring, of course, not in water bodies, not pulling down existing cocoa farms and etc. But how about if we strengthen the regime of small-scale artisanal mining and make sure that at the local level, the MMDCs pay close attention to small-scale artisanal mining as an economic activity, Why would we be interested in Newmont coming to carry out large-scale mining here, and yet in areas where the defined ore is not worth large-scale mining, but there's still some gold, we don't also now try to structure, the artisans and the young people to carry out small-scale mining activity legitimately. So I will approach the job with that attitude that let's engage, let's ensure that they are doing it legally, let's invest in EPA and have a lot of personnel at the EPA, let's invest in Minerals Commission and have a lot of mining engineers who are in every district, who identify every single space where a mining activity is taking place, who make sure that mining is conducted in a way that is consistent with all the environmental regulations, and who also ensure that whoever carries out the mine, at the end of it, will reclaim the area and plant and make sure that they invest in restoring the area to what it was before they came. And if we did that, we will minimize the friction, and then we would actually benefit. Because I say this now, we're actually benefiting as a country from the activities of small-scale and artisanal miners. And I think that whilst we are benefiting, we should also be investing in them, which is investing in personnel to support them, investing in infrastructure to support them, investing in monitoring them. I recall you had a press conference some time ago. In fact, 2 or 3 days ago, there was also a press conference by the NPP who said, for instance, that the activities of Gold Board is encouraging illegal miners because they are not able to trace the gold to establish whether it is coming from a legal mining activity or an illegal mining activity. So what that calls for is that we must invest in trying to know the location where the gold is coming from and who is mining there and whether the person is mining legally or not. And in most cases, how do we ensure that they are mining legally? Because as a country, I don't think we are totally against mining. I think we are against mining in ways that destroy the environment, pollute the water bodies, and endanger the lives of all of us as Ghanaians.
Yes, so I think your last phrase is what carries the entire burden. Irresponsible mining, activities that destroy water bodies and our forests. So I would want you, as part of the reset, to get the MMDCs to rather focus on that bit. I think that would be reassuring to the country, if we do that. So once you are giving your word on that, I won't belabor. My last point, then we can call it off. There are calls for a full-blown partisan political system at the local government level. In advanced democracies that we copy the example, their entire political structure is partisan. Even in the United States, even at the prosecutorial level, people contest for it. You know that this attorney general of a particular state is a Republican or a Democrat. I mean, they have allowed it. Now, we are a bit concerned about what we have heard recently in circles of government, that the constitutional amendment that is to be expected, there's a proposal for the president alone to have the mandate to nominate people to contest. We hold the view that if it is an open contest, then it should be anybody contesting. If we don't even want to make it partisan, the president should have no hand in who contests for mayor or DCE. I want to know your own views regarding the reforms at the district level elections. Are you for an open field where elections are called, those who qualify to participate go pick forms, or you still think that the central government should nominate people to go for an open election?
Thank you very much, Minority Leader and Ranking Member, for the question. This question raises very fundamental constitutional jurisprudential issues. And I know you will ask me to not lead you into jurisprudence. But structurally, what we have now is a situation where, one, we want to maintain a unitary state. We want to maintain a unitary state. And at the same time, we want to ensure that governance is owned at the local level. There's local participation, there's trust, and because of that, the locals are contributing towards their own governance and development. So these are the core objectives. Now, for those who say, let's have free-range elections at the local level, this is what will happen. We will be electing 2 people who will have executive powers. When you elect a DCE of a given geographical space, he would have executive powers, and then you now elect assembly members who will have legislative powers. Then at the national level, you elect a president who has executive powers, and then you elect members of parliament who have legislative powers. So some of the concern expressed by those who are designing the architecture is if you elect a president and then the president doesn't have control over who is also exercising executive powers in a particular given location, are you likely to be triggering conflict between the person elected by the whole country to exercise executive authority and the person elected in a district to also exercise executive authority? Who becomes accountable? That is a structural issue. Most people don't understand the architectures of other jurisdictions. So for instance, let's take the United States. In the United States, you will say, oh, but we have the federal government and we have the state government. They have succeeded in doing that because what they have done is to, within the executive functions, to establish spheres of control. So the federal government is in charge of defense. The federal government is in charge of foreign policy, international relations. The federal government is in charge of interstate commerce. Okay? So you have defined specific areas of executive power that is reserved to the federal government. Every other power is left to the state. So when you elect a state governor, he knows his territory. He doesn't interfere in the territory of the federal government. That's why you will watch movies. For those of you who have lived in the US, you will see that you have the state having its own police force. New York police, Los Angeles police. You never hear federal government police. Federal government have their federal government bureau, you get it? So even in terms of, security sector, spheres are defined. That's why you're watching a movie and then there's a crime committed, then the local police get there, then the federal can say, no, this one is ours, this one is not yours. You get it? Or the local police arrive there and federal police say, oh, this one is also ours, it's not yours. So if we actually, as a country, try to rather define the spheres of executive power and assign what executive power we think should be performed by local government, and therefore we are electing a DCE and he has that executive power irrespective of who is president, and what executive power is for a president, and so when we vote him, he doesn't interfere in the area of executive power, and then the citizens know who to hold accountable for what. The same way even in the United Kingdom, people don't realize it. The real governance structures there are the local authorities. Then, of course, you now have the Prime Minister, and they focus on some other areas. But if you go to London, you have London Metropolitan Police. You get the situation. I don't recall seeing any other rival authority. So that's the first fundamental issue that needs to be addressed. Otherwise, you might just be superimposing structures on others and ultimately end up creating conflict. And if you address that, you'll be addressing the other concern that others have, which is basically that a president wants to have a DCE that is reliable in terms of the execution of his own mandate. But if we have defined the spheres of influence, you can't be telling that you want a DCE that is reliable, because your sphere of influence is there, and then the DCE's sphere of influence is also there. So there are deep, fundamental, structural issues that we need to think through. Now, this proposal that was presented and which government looked at and recalibrated it and gave a position paper tries to meet each side halfway. So we want a situation where the president is able to work with the person who is the DCE, okay, because he nominates him. But we also want to make sure that that person is accountable to the entire population of voters in his district. As it is now, the system we have is that the president is comfortable because he has nominated that person, but the person is approved by elected assembly member, which is a college. So it is easy for him to make sure that he stays in power as long as he satisfies that small number of elected assembly members. And the entire population is complaining because they are not satisfied. But he and his assemblymen, they are happy because he's able to manage his assemblymen in such a way that they don't trigger a vote of, no confidence in him. So it is a midway approach where the president can nominate, but it's no longer just the assembly members who are going to be doing the approval of the nomination. It is the entire population that is going to be doing the approval of the nomination, so that the DC will also feel that he has responsibility towards the entire population of voters in his district, municipality, or metropolis. That's the whole idea. I think that Ghanaians have to think through it, and let's see, and let's experiment and see if it will lead to an improvement in the performance of local governance.
Honorable nominee, so as we land, I want to ask you, in every difficult and danger you find yourself in life, in whom do you normally put your trust?
Yes, honorable nominee.
You want me to ask you?
Recently, when I got married in my lovely wife.
Now, finally, as you exit, you opted to make some disclosure, and I was happy with the disclosure you made regarding the politics we play on the floor. Sometimes we, all of us as political actors, we suffer that unfortunate perception people have about the politics we do. Sometimes they don't know that it's a role play. In my case, I've had a situation where somebody said, "Oh, Afenyo, can't you be as calm as this particular colleague of yours?" I said, "Yeah, colleague is not minority leader. If he gets into that hot seat where he has to consult every party elder till 5 a.m. and he sleeps for 1 hour and has to carry the burden on his shoulders, he won't be calm again." Anyway, I want to ask you, for those who don't know you and I, if somebody asks you to describe Afenyo-Markin as your opposite number, Ayariga, what would you say? I'm done.
I would say he's a troublesome boy.
He is indeed troublesome.
But I will also add that he is somebody you can trust when you are dealing with him. When I say trust, wait till I define trust. You can trust that he will cause trouble. you can trust that he will push his side's position. Of course, and at all times, even I would say, I know this will be difficult for you, but you have to play your role. You are a minority. You have to play your role. And people call me, why do you allow Afenyo-Markin to do all the things that he's doing? I'm like, he's just playing his role. He's just playing his role. So let him play it. I'll play mine. When he finishes doing all the things that he's doing, I'll cause the vote. And then the decision will be taken the way I want it. So that has been it. But, you know, in addition, working with you in the last 1.5 years, you know, I've come to know you as a person of integrity and honesty. And I want to thank you for the forthrightness with which you have dealt with me as the majority leader. I hope that you and my successor will find common ground and work the same way. I've already told him that you are not somebody that he would he should be yielding to. He should be doing more than I was doing. Me, you know, because I'm a little older than you, I used to tolerate you a lot. This man is about your age mate. So it's about your age mate. I've actually told the president to increase the number of fire tenders in this area. So you might see 2 or more fire tenders being brought and parked in front of the Chamber of Parliament House, because I also know what he will do to you. I could tolerate you, listen to you the whole day, and just get up and say 1 or 2 things, and then have us vote. This man, he would like to reply to everything that you will say. So also be ready. But I want to say that I enjoyed my time working with you as the minority leader. And I just want to encourage you that so many things will be thrown at you, but from what I've come to know of you, I know that you are very resilient. You never give up. Even when you are lying down, you'll be shouting. When I get up, you will see me. Oh, you're lying down. You're on the ground. so anyway, but I honestly enjoy your friendship. I enjoyed your friendship, and I do appreciate that. And the entire minority caucus, who will make all the noise, but in the end will support, sometimes even support more than my own, you know, side, to ensure that bills are passed, approvals are given, and etc.